Picture the Trans-Canada Highway on a gray October afternoon. Spruce trees blur past your windows, the radio cuts to static, and your gas gauge drops below a quarter tank. In Canada, we sell ourselves a story: polite people, clean cities, safe streets. It is a story that feels true in downtown Toronto, in the mountain resorts of Banff, on the leafy streets of Victoria. But Canada is enormous, and the further you travel from the postcard version, the more you realize that the country has two faces, and one of them has been quietly falling apart for decades. This is not a list about fear. It is a list about consequences. What happens when a mine closes and nothing replaces it? When a government promise evaporates? When a community is left to manage poverty, addiction, and isolation without the tools to do it? These towns are real places with real people, but they are also places where locals have developed a very specific kind of road trip wisdom: know where to stop, know where to keep driving, and never let your tank go below half. By the time we reach number 1, you will understand that Canada's most dangerous places are not loud. They are quiet in a way that takes a few minutes to recognize, and by then, you've already pulled in.
Number 10. Wetaskiwin, Alberta. Dirty Wet. Wetaskiwin sits 70 kilometers south of Edmonton on Highway 2A, far enough from the city to be forgotten, close enough to absorb its overflow problems. The name is Cree for the hills where peace was made. The locals have a different name for it. They call it Dirty Wet, or sometimes Dead Askiwin. Neither is affectionate. Wetaskiwin was once a clean, functional prairie service town, car dealerships, agricultural suppliers, a small college. The kind of place you stopped at on the way somewhere else and thought, pleasant enough. But over the past 2 decades, as Edmonton's housing costs squeezed its most vulnerable residents outward, Wetaskiwin absorbed what the city pushed out, and without the resources to manage it. Today, Wetaskiwin's crime severity index runs nearly 3 times the national average, driven by property crimes so persistent it has become background noise. Locals on community Facebook groups post stolen truck alerts the way others post weather updates. The downtown core has a visible drug crisis, storefronts that close early, and a gas station culture where attendants watch you the moment you pull in. What makes Wetaskiwin unsettling is not the danger level, it is the exhaustion. You can see it on the faces at the Tim Hortons. You can feel it in the way locals talk about their own town, not with pride or anger, but with the flat affect of people who have been trying to fix the same problems for 20 years and are running out of reasons to believe it will change. One longtime resident put it plainly in a local forum: "We're not a bad town, we're a tired town, and tired towns can surprise you."
Number 9. Portage-la-Prairie, Manitoba. The gateway nobody wanted. You will drive through Portage-la-Prairie on the Trans-Canada if you are crossing Manitoba. It sits at the junction of Highway 1 and Highway 16, the geographic middle of nowhere strategically. There is a gas station. You will be tempted. Think twice. Portage-la-Prairie is one of Manitoba's most crime-affected mid-sized towns relative to its population of roughly 13,000. Its crime severity index has repeatedly ranked among the highest in the province, with violent crime well above national averages. It is a town shaped by agricultural economies that slowly contracted, leaving behind unemployment, a struggling social safety net, and meth, which arrived in prairie communities with the ferocity of a prairie fire and spread with similar speed. The town is not outwardly threatening. There are murals on some of the walls, a regional exhibition ground, a community that in its better moments shows real warmth. But the gas stations here operate with a specific kind of vigilance: staff behind glass, signs about not leaving your vehicle unattended, the kind of small protocols that accumulate into a clear message. What locals resent most is being treated as a stopover problem rather than a community in crisis. The infrastructure investment that might address root causes, mental health services, addiction treatment, employment programs, has never arrived at the scale the town needs. So the cycle continues, and travelers who stop long enough to notice tend to leave quickly.
Number 8. Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, the edge of the shield. Prince Albert is the gateway to Saskatchewan's north. Beyond it, the roads thin out, the trees close in, and the communities grow more isolated. Prince Albert is where you stop before you disappear into the boreal forest, and it shows. The city of 36,000 has chronically high crime rates, regularly appearing near the top of Maclean's annual crime index rankings. Violent crime here runs significantly above the national average, a product of geography as much as anything else. Prince Albert serves as the regional hub for dozens of isolated northern communities that have no other urban center within reach. That means it absorbs the pressure of an enormous, underserved catchment area, housing unstable families, released prisoners from nearby federal and provincial institutions, and communities dealing with the legacy of residential school trauma. There are 3 prisons in Prince Albert's region. The city does not receive proportional support for the social costs that accompany that reality. Walk into certain parts of Prince Albert after dark, and you will understand what an edge city feels like. Not like the edge of a map, like the edge of a system. This is where the social infrastructure ends and people are left to manage on their own. One former resident described it this way: Prince Albert didn't create its problems, it inherited them from every decision that was made north of it and sent south to be dealt with.
Number 7. Kenora, Ontario. Beautiful and broken. Kenora is genuinely beautiful. Lake of the Woods is one of the most stunning bodies of water in Ontario. A labyrinth of 14,000 islands, clean water, and sky that seems larger than elsewhere. In summer, the town fills with cottagers from Winnipeg, retirees, and tourists who come for fishing and sunsets. They tend not to see what the locals see. Kenora has one of the highest crime rates per capita in Ontario, and its issues extend well beyond property crime. The city of 15,000 sits at a painful intersection, a tourist economy built on wealth and recreation, alongside a large indigenous population, primarily Anishinaabe, that has been systematically underserved for generations. Housing insecurity, addiction, intergenerational trauma from residential schools, and a nearly collapsed support system have created a visible and severe social crisis in the same streets where cottagers stop for ice cream. The tension this creates is palpable and uncomfortable. It is also entirely predictable. When you build a community's economy on a seasonal luxury trade and provide nothing sustainable for the people who live there year-round, the gap fills itself. Local advocates have said for years that Kenora is treated as a tourism product, not a community. The visitors see the water. The locals see what happens in November when the boats are gone, the temperature drops to -30, and the services that might help are either underfunded or a 4-hour drive away.
Number 6. Lethbridge, Alberta, the bridge that couldn't hold. Lethbridge sits in the coulees of southern Alberta, dramatic landscape carved by the Old Man River, the high-level bridge arching overhead like something from a different era of ambition. For most of its history, Lethbridge was a stable, conservative prairie city. Agriculture, a university, a quiet civic pride. Then, the opioid crisis arrived, and Lethbridge went from a city most Canadians had never thought about to a city that became a national cautionary tale. By 2019 and 2020, Lethbridge had among the highest per capita rates of methamphetamine and opioid-related deaths in all of Alberta, which itself was in the grip of a catastrophic overdose crisis. The city's supervised consumption site, Arches, was handling one of the highest volumes of visits of any such facility in the country before the provincial government controversially closed it in 2020, citing community complaints. After the closure, emergency calls spiked. Overdose deaths continued. Crime, particularly property crime linked to addiction, remained elevated. The decision to close the facility became a political flashpoint, but for people on the ground, it was simply a moment when an already struggling population lost one of its few remaining safety lines. Lethbridge is not a ghost town. It has functioning businesses, a university,
ordinary suburban life, but it also has blocks where the drug crisis is visibly present, where you will see people in crisis in the middle of the day, and where the gas stations have learned to expect a certain amount of unpredictability from the people who come through. The bridge the city is named for is still standing. The systems meant to hold people up have had a harder time of it.
Number 5. Sydney, Nova Scotia. The tar ponds. Sydney was going to be Canada's Pittsburgh. That was the dream. Cape Breton's steel industry, anchored by the Sydney Steel Corporation, known as Cisco, employed thousands and powered the regional economy for most of the 20th century. At its peak, the steel plant was the heartbeat of an entire culture. Cape Breton working-class identity, union solidarity, kitchen parties, and a sense that hard work in a hard industry was enough to build a life. Then Cisco closed permanently, and it left behind one of the most polluted sites in Canadian history. The Sydney tar ponds, a 700,000-ton toxic lake of coal tar and industrial sludge, sitting in the middle of a residential neighborhood, became a symbol of everything that went wrong when industry left and government hesitated. For decades, residents lived next to contaminated soil, water, and air, while cleanup was debated, studied, and delayed. Cancer rates in nearby neighborhoods drew national attention. The cleanup, eventually completed at a cost of over $400 million, took until 2013. What the cleanup left behind is a neighborhood still grappling with economic trauma, population loss, and a social fabric stretched thin by decades of uncertainty. Sydney has real pockets of genuine danger, violent crime above maritime averages in certain areas, but the deeper damage is environmental and psychological. A community that was told its sacrifice would be honored and is still waiting. When you pull off in parts of Sydney's industrial districts, the smell of history is in the air, and not the good kind.
Number 4. Thompson, Manitoba. The nickel capital that forgot to diversify. Thompson is not easy to reach. It sits 740 kilometers north of Winnipeg, accessible by a single highway that can be treacherous in winter, which in northern Manitoba means approximately 8 months of the year. There is no real alternative route. If the road closes, Thompson is cut off. This isolation was manageable when Inco, later Val, was running full capacity at the nickel mine and smelter that built the city from scratch in the 1950s. Thompson was a company town in the most literal sense, planned, funded, and sustained by one employer. When the company restructured, reduced its workforce, and eventually scaled back smelting operations, Thompson absorbed the blow in slow motion. Today, Thompson's violent crime rate is among the highest in Manitoba, a province that already ranks poorly on national crime indices. In a city of 12,000 with limited economic alternatives, persistent poverty, and an overloaded social support system serving an enormous northern catchment area, the conditions for violence are structural, not incidental. What makes Thompson particularly difficult is the cold. At minus 40 degrees Celsius in January, streets do not offer the option of just leaving. There is nowhere to go, no warmer city an hour away, no escape route that doesn't cost money most residents don't have. The isolation is not just geographic, it is economic and psychological. Thompson also serves as a hub for dozens of First Nations communities in Manitoba's north, communities dealing with boil water advisories, housing crises, and multi-generational trauma. The city absorbs those pressures without the funding to address them. One local said, "The company built us, the company left us."
Number 3. Prince George, British Columbia. The Highway of Tears. Highway 16 runs 724 kilometers across northern BC, from Prince Rupert on the Pacific coast to Prince George in the interior. It passes through some of the most remote and beautiful landscape in the country. It is also one of the most dangerous stretches of road in Canada, not because of the driving, but because of what has happened to the people who have disappeared along it.
Since the 1970s, at least 18 women and girls, and possibly many more, have been murdered or gone missing along Highway 16. The majority are indigenous. The highway has been called the Highway of Tears, and it runs directly into Prince George. Prince George is a city of 70,000 that serves as the commercial and transportation hub for northern BC. It has a university, it has an airport, it has a functioning civic government and ordinary suburban life in many of its neighborhoods. It is also the city where RCMP investigations into the Highway of Tears have repeatedly stalled, where Indigenous women have reported being ignored when reporting missing persons, and where the violent crime rate, particularly for women, has drawn sustained national scrutiny. The city's downtown core has visible struggles with addiction and homelessness. The surrounding neighborhoods have pockets of serious crime, and beneath the surface of an otherwise functional mid-sized city is a racial divide that shapes where danger concentrates and whose danger gets addressed. This is not a city to avoid entirely, but it is a city that demands eyes open, particularly if you are a woman, particularly if you are traveling alone, particularly if you are Indigenous. The highway that brought you here has a history, and Prince George sits at the end of it.
Number 2. North Battleford, Saskatchewan. Year after year. North Battleford has appeared at or near the top of Maclean's annual Most Dangerous Places in Canada ranking so many times that locals have stopped being surprised by it. The Crime Severity Index for North Battleford has in some years been more than 3 times the national average. In a country of 38 million people, a city of 14,000 manages to post some of the worst crime numbers in the nation, year after year. The city sits across the North Saskatchewan River from Battleford, its smaller twin, in the middle of agricultural Saskatchewan. It was never an industrial powerhouse. It was always a service hub for the surrounding agricultural economy and the broader region. But agricultural mechanization reduced rural employment. Indigenous communities in the surrounding area have faced sustained neglect, and the meth epidemic that swept Prairie communities arrived in North Battleford with particular force. Property crime here is relentless. Violent crime, particularly assaults, runs at levels that would generate national outrage if they occurred in a larger, more visible city. Emergency services are stretched, mental health resources are grossly inadequate, and the local police service is managing a call volume that would challenge a department twice its size. What is most striking about North Battleford is how ordinary it looks. There are fast food restaurants and a shopping mall and a new hospital. There are families at the park and kids on bikes and all the visual cues of normal prairie life. And then the crime stats arrive, and they do not match the picture. That gap between appearance and reality is the most honest thing about North Battleford. It is a place that looks like it should be fine, and clearly is not. And the distance between those two facts is filled with a decade of funding shortfalls, policy failures, and communities left to manage alone.
Number 1. Loche, Saskatchewan. The end of the road. Loche does not appear on most road trip itineraries. There is a reason for that. It sits 600 kilometers north of Saskatoon at the end of Highway 955. Beyond Loche, the road ends. There is nowhere further to go by car. The town of 2,600, predominantly Dene, is one of the most isolated communities in Canada accessible by a paved road. For most of the year, it is connected to the south by that single highway, which can be closed by blizzards for days at a time. There is no railway. There is limited air service. The nearest city with a hospital is hours away. In January 2016, Loche became known to the rest of Canada for the worst possible reason: a school shooting that killed 4 people. It was the deadliest mass shooting in Saskatchewan history. The gunman was a teenager. He had grown up in a community with no mental health services, high unemployment,
overcrowded housing, and the residue of generations of trauma from residential schools. After the shooting, the country paid attention to Loche for approximately 6 months. Then it stopped. The conditions that produced that day have not been meaningfully resolved. Youth unemployment remains catastrophic. Housing is severely overcrowded. Access to mental health services is structurally inadequate. The poverty rate in Loche is among the highest in the country. Loche is number 1 on this list, not because it is the most dangerous town by crime statistic, though crime rates here are severe for its size, but because it represents the honest answer to the question this whole list asks: why are these places like this? Loche is like this because Canada drew a circle around it, told the people inside the circle that they were Canadian, and then proceeded to provide them with infrastructure, services, and opportunity at a fraction of what Canadians elsewhere receive. It is the end of the road, and the road stopped where the investment stopped. When you see a gas station in Loche, you are not just looking at a place to fill your tank. You're looking at one of the only commercial establishments in a community of 2,600 people with nowhere else to go. That is not a crime statistic. That is a policy choice, and policy choices have consequences that last longer than news cycles.